So again, if you're just joining us on our Zoom and or on our social media sites, let us know where you're joining in from. I'm just sharing this over on my social media platforms, and I would encourage all of you guys to do that too. As you're signing on social media, if you can, hit the share button, share this out with your ohana and friends. You don't want to miss this conversation today. Well, any Thursday, but yeah, definitely today. We're gonna start in about with the meat of our presentation. Right at about 2 o'clock, so we have still a few more minutes. Again, this is a great time if you're joining us now. With the meat of go over into your own social media platforms and share it out with everybody. Okay, good. Wow, we have a great group of people. Aloha mai kako. No hea mai oko. Share it out with everybody. O vau no o mehana o ka la hind. No pa lolo o ahu mai au. Ke noha nei vau ma alia manu I ke ia manawa. Ua maika I ke ia la ua nani loa ma Hawai'i nei. Na aia oi ma waho o Hawai'i. Aloha. And no kako lucky people ma Hawai'i nei. Aloha. So we see we have people coming in from Kaimuki, Kahului Maui, Napili Maui, Aloha mai e ka ohana. You know, on today's
people
show.
From Napili, probably my ohana.
Oh yeah, that's right. You know, has a lot of family from that side of the island.
E hono kohau.
You guys are all on right now. Again, today we're going to be joined by Professor Ken Lawson from the Richardson School of Law here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, but of course has an extensive background in the subject areas that we're going to be talking about today. One of my favorite people to watch to get the scoops on what's going on both here in Hawaii and all across the Honua. And right now, okay, we're coming in right now. Oh, aloha e ke ala from Palolo, also, but living in Manoa. You know, in Palolo, when somebody moves to Manoa, right, we start singing the theme song from the Jefferson.
It's 2 o'clock.
You can always rely on Hina's computer
Siri.
to let us know. That did not sound like Siri. That sounded like Siri's uncle.
Yeah.
I programmed it that way. In fact, it kind of cusses at me in a different language, in a different Polynesian language, when I don't pay attention to it. So,
okay. Well, we're glad you're paying attention to it then. Okay, welcome everybody to this week's Aloha Rising. My name is Mehano Kalahind, and of course, I'm the Director of Community Engagement at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We're also joined by Community Outreach Manager Davis Price and Community Outreach Advocate Hinale Moana Wong. And we bring you this series, you know, every Thursday at 2 o'clock, you know, same time, same place. And I just wanted to give an update for tomorrow's or this weekend's Ola Kahaloa show, which is a show that we have on KGMB normally on Saturdays. And if Joel, if you can put there you go. This is normally on Saturday afternoons at 6 p.m. This week, because of something going on the network, we will be broadcasting on Friday, so tomorrow, right? So let everybody know. And our guest tomorrow, it was such a great show to film. Tomorrow we have, of course, the one and only Amy Hanayali'i Gilliam talking about her work with the Hawaii Academy of Recording Arts. You know, this year we're not able to have the Nahoku Hano Hano Awards, but they did something amazing instead and broadcasted a lot of the classic footage of the Nahoku Hano Hano Awards over the years that many of the young musicians today didn't get to experience live and in person. So it was, they just dug deep into the archives, you know, on that one. And so we see classic moments from Auntie Loyal Garner, Melvin Lead, Israel Kamaka Vivo Ole, the Mana'o Company, you know, Uncle Robert and Uncle Roland Casimiro, you know, sitting at the piano and just young gents. So Amy talks a little bit about that. We also have our friends over at the Native Hawaiian Chambers of Commerce coming on and talking about how they're helping out Native Hawaiian owned businesses, along with our very own staff member, Sterling Wong, who's gonna talk about how important data is, you know, to us. And then we have just an amazing young man, Laiana Kanoa Wong, who's gonna be giving the history of the High Hawaii, right? So this High Hawaii right behind me and behind all of us on our screens today, right? Not many of us, well, we're never taught that history of what's so significant and why is it so important and who designed it, right? That's like the $1 million question that most people don't know. And hint, it was one of our ali'i who did that, right? But Laiana goes into a great discussion about that. So if you proudly fly your High Hawaii, you're not going to want to miss out that discussion. And then, of course, you round out with the chairman of the SHA, the Homestead Council, and talking about a lot of good stuff that's happening on the homesteads. Okay, so join us tomorrow at 6:30, Friday, June 5th at 6:30 p.m. on KGMB. Yeah, now without further ado, all of you, you know, again, we're bringing you this series of talks because it is so important for us to get civically engaged, right? It's always been important for us. In fact, our kupuna, and we've established the last 3 shows that it's been, you know, something that our people are very ma'atu, and somewhere along the lines, you know, maybe we got disenchanted with the system, but our civic engagement is not up to what it used to be, right, historically. So we want to revive that ʻŌiwi in everyone, and also give you some of your reasons why, and also to answer the hows of civic engagement, and by bringing you these topics and these conversations. So I'm going to turn it over now to Davis Price, our community outreach manager, to introduce our show today, and of course our incredible guests. Davis?
Yeah, mahalo mihana. So, you know, today we were actually, what we had scheduled was a op-ed writing workshop. We were going to continue this ball rolling with giving people sharing an actual exercise that we could do to exercise our voices, our community voice. And we were going to do an op-ed workshop, and we're going to have Professor Lawson and Keha Watson do that today. But given the current events and this mass demonstration, uprising, unrest, whatever the word you want to use to describe it, that's happening across America, we figured since Professor Lawson was already scheduled, we dedicate some time to really maybe try to unpack some of these issues, really, you know, and start with really acknowledging, you know, why, starting to talk a bit about why this is happening, right? Which we all saw a man, George Floyd, excuse me, be brutally murdered by police officers, and we all saw it. And you know, there's a lot of noise going on, and you know, when in the media that talks about the looting and the riots and the violence, and you know, different political entities at play, or ideologies. And really, I think it's important to cut through the noise and talk about what's really going on. And we know that the reaction is caused by something, and We know that justice has been called for by the African American community for decades when it comes to police brutality, excessive force by the police, suppression and oppression by systemic racism. And, you know, and it's important for our audience, while we are, at this time are not experiencing that type of unrest here in Hawaii, we're familiar with movements, we're familiar with struggles for justice, and I think that and we see it, we feel it, you know, we're experiencing it from a distance because it's what we see every day right now. And so I think it's important that we have someone like Professor Lawson come on and we start to unpack some of these issues. And I think it's relative to this discussion that we've been having on this show about our collective Kūleana for civic engagement, understanding our cultural identity, our history, as we navigate these systems and these processes. And we're not alone in this, right? There's multiple communities that we live amongst. There's multiple communities that are here living amongst us. And I think that eventually, you know, if you're calling for justice, you know, I'm gonna you know, justice should be achieved by all, but if it's not being achieved by everyone, justice is not happening for all, right? And so that's our collective Kūleana. So maybe we can start to talk about some of that. So, and part of that is, you know, when you have varying communities, differing community, you know, various communities, it's important that we recognize each other's differences before, you know, as we can start to build coalitions or organize, but even beyond that, just living amongst each other, we should be recognizing each other's differences. And this is something that the Hawaiian community knows very well. You know, the movement in large part, the last 50 years has been centered around rejecting assimilation, right? We don't wanna, why should we have to give up our language and our culture and our history and our ike kupuna to be part of a productive society? And that's what we're often told, right? And that's what history tells us is what happened. So that said, I think we have to take some time to acknowledge other experiences, other cultures, and given what's happening right now, we have to tackle the issue. We have to talk about the issue at hand, which is it's a justice issue, and start to make those connections. And, you know, some of our connections with the African-American community go back to the kingdom. And Mehana, you've been reading up on this and talking about it a bit. So you wanna share that right now? Did we lose Mehana?
Yeah, definitely. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I know my
can hear you
camera.
now.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, my camera was off. Color mic. Yeah, mahalo for that, Davis. You know, one of the things that I think that most people don't realize is that there was no slavery here in Hawaii, right? Even though we had a tremendous influence of Americans, and especially American businessmen who wanted to bring, you know, that American version of labor, aka slavery, over to Hawaii. It wasn't allowed. In fact, in 1852, you know, we codified it in our constitution, the kingdom constitution at that time, you know, that slavery would not be, you know, allowed. And in fact, when a Black person, an African-American, arrived to the shores of Hawaii, you know, that they would be emancipated, right? So the language went so far as that. And so we had a deep understanding of that wrong, right? Of course, that wrong that was happening. And truthfully, African Americans have been coming, you know, to Hawaii aboard ships as soon as ships started to come over, right? And we have ohana that sprung out from those sailors, from those very first trips here, you know. And then another interesting thing is during the Civil War, right? Hawaiians joined up with the movements to end slavery, right? They joined the North in the war, and in fact died in the Civil War. So you'll see in Civil War burial grounds in the United States names and plaques dedicated to Native Hawaiians who were part of the colored unit throughout the Civil War, right? And they're probably the most famous, and famous not by name, but famous by the stories that are told about a black man that was in the court of Kalakaua and Liliuokalani, was a man by the name of John Blossom, who, you know, came here. He was actually Jamaican, and he was enslaved by the British until the British abolished slavery, and then was a slave again by the Americans, you know, and then when he came over here on a ship, finally settled in Hawaii, and grew his family here in Hawaii. And he formed a relationship with Kaba'akea early on, the father of Kalakaua and Liliuokalani, and lived, you know, with that family and amongst that family, and his daughters and family members, you know, served in the homes, you know, was very close to the families, the royal families, and tragically, but I think this goes to show how what kind of influence a man like this can have. John Blossom left Hawaii to go to Chile to fight in their War of the Pacific, and he actually, well, he didn't go there to fight necessarily. He went there to bring home Pacific Islanders who were blackbirded, right? And if you don't know what the term blackbirded is, go look that up, right? And so Pacific Islanders. And I actually recently saw a film about called Blackbirding that introduced me to the whole subject. But so all that to say is that we realize that as Pacific peoples, as brown peoples, right, we knew early on that our struggles for justice, the way that people will perceive us, white people especially will perceive us, was on par, you know, with each other. Although we do not suffer the same history as African Americans or Africans around the world, and that we did not have slavery here in Hawaii, you know, we could definitely see our kupuna did kako'o and align with those sentiments of justice and freedom, and thought it was incredibly barbaric, you know, to have such an institution of slavery, right? So that's just some history, and other scholars, you know, you can go look up, other scholars have definitely delved deep into this part of the conversation about our historical connections. But today, that's just it's kind of just an overview, you know, just a survey of those kinds of topics for you to go and go and research some more. Yep.
Right on. Mahalo, Mihana. So yeah, just trying to recognize the differences and the pilina here, right? Between various communities, and right now we're talking about the Hawaiian and the African American community, and we'll now hand it over or introduce Professor Lawson, who is the faculty specialist at the William S. Richardson School of Law. I'm a proud alumni of that institution as well. He's the co-director of the Hawaiian Innocence Project, the Hawaii Innocence Project. And he also lends his expertise in the areas of government accountability. And most recently, as many of you may know, he was a staunch advocate and supporter for the movement on Mauna Kea, making many trips up to the Mauna, hosting classes at Pu'uhuluhulu, speaking to our kupuna and the thousands of people that were gathered there. I was there a couple times when he was sharing experiences, kind of like what I'm hoping he'll do today. And it's about, you know, sharing relative experiences and providing insight, right? And so, you know, mahalo nui for that fierce advocacy, Professor Lawson. And, you know, in addition to that, why I think his insight is incredibly valuable for this specific discussion is he's a former litigator, trial attorney, tried multiple high-profile murder and police brutality cases throughout his legal career. So, you know, he brings incredible insight to the issue that has sparked what we're seeing happening across America. So, enough of us talking. Let's talk story, Professor. How you doing? Mahalo for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, you know, just to you know, get started, you know, we recognize that an injustice has occurred, right? We saw the horrific killing of George Floyd while he was in custody, and it kind of, you know, for me, it triggered a number of emotions and thoughts and reactions, and that I had to kind of just narrow down and think about, like, what's going on here. And we know that police brutality and the murder of unarmed African Americans is something that's been experienced for far too long by the African American community, and it's, we see it all too often now with the advent of social media. I think that has made everyone more aware of what's going on, because we can see it, right? I know that has been going on far longer than that. You know, hip hop in the late 80s, they were talking about it, right? 30 years ago, and people thought they were crazy. But now we have social media, everybody's got a camera, so the awareness is up. And you know, I guess the question to start off is, why do you think that it is this incident has sparked, or what's happening right now has become, I don't want to use the term violent. I mean, there's violence involved, but there's mass peaceful protests. There is thousands of people taking to the streets in cities across America. You know, why do you think that's happening right now?
You know, I've been doing this, as you said, man. You know, I started, you know, I got interested in civil rights and racial justice when I was in high school, because this stuff used to happen to us when I was in, you know, coming up as a young black man. And I think the difference is, you know, I talked yesterday and a little bit, but, you know, what's different about here in Hawaii is that the police officers, you know, y'all know I'm critical of the police when they doing misconduct here, but the reason why I think Hawaii is different than what's going on in mainland is because the police here are from the communities. They've been raised in the communities. They got families in the communities. So you don't see the same type of blatant misconduct. Where I'm from, the white officers, and some of them was black, but for the white officers that patrolled our neighborhoods, man, they didn't live nowhere near our neighborhood. They lived in the suburbs. We lived in there in the city. And so, you know, just starting as a young man, being pulled over, being harassed, just for nothing, you know, and then coming up and practicing law, I did a lot of these cases where I represented numerous black families who had their relatives killed that were unarmed. In Cincinnati, in the same way that we saw Mr. Floyd killed, same way. I had 3 cases just like that. You know, and when they put the person on the ground and they put too much pressure on them or choke them, and they die from the positional asphyxiation. And so going down to the morgue, going to see these autopsies, and knowing, even if I'm a lawyer, right, it doesn't matter. The fact is that I'm black, and I could be subjected to the same thing. And so we had riots, you know, we had riots. We used to protest a lot, right? And so I would be the lawyer, and I'm also in the streets protesting. And in 2001, April of 2001, within a 2-year period, the Cincinnati police had killed 15 unarmed black men, 15 in 2 years. And so I represented a lot of those families. And when they killed the 15th person, his name was Timothy Thomas, and they killed him. He was unarmed. He had an outstanding warrant for no driver's license. And he was running from the police, and an officer shot and killed him. Wasn't fighting with the police, he was running from the police. And so the city erupted. And what we did was, me and the mother went down to City Hall. They were having a council meeting with the police and the mayor there. And it was about this case. And so we went down there. And the mother said that she wanted the chief of police to answer a question. And the question was, what did the police officer say was his reason for killing my unarmed son? And the chief said, we're not going to answer. That's an ongoing investigation. Peacefully, we locked the mayor, the chief, the entire city council inside chambers. You know, we had a large gathering of black people down there. There were a lot of reverends down there, and we were all activists, and I was a lawyer. And they asked me, do I want them to lock the mayor and the chief in until they answered the question? So we locked them in. They finally answered our question like 3 hours later. There were peaceful protests, and then it just erupted. And going back to your point, I apologize. There's just so much going on. So we saw Trayvon Martin right? Being tracked down, black teenager being tracked down by George Zimmerman, and all he has is some Skittles and the iced tea. And Zimmerman kills him, and he's found not guilty. We got Tamir Rice, 12-year-old kid playing with a play gun in a park. When the police get there, somebody reports that there's a black kid with a real gun, and they shoot him within 1.5 seconds. Then you had I Can't Breathe, Eric Garner in New York City. And the police, we see it on videotape, and nothing happens. The police don't get charged. Then you had when Ferguson went up in the similar riots in 2015, when Michael Brown had his hands up and they still killed him. An officer doesn't get charged. And so just over the last month, we've seen Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. His case was in Georgia, being chased by 3 white men like a runaway slave, and then killed on videotape. And they tried to cover that up. And somehow the tape got released to the public. And then it became, right? But nothing was going to happen had that tape not come out. Then we have a sister that's an EMT worker in Louisville, Kentucky last month. Where the police enter her home with a bad warrant and kill her while she's in bed. And nobody's charged. But this one, Davis, this one that happened here, to watch that man with his knee on our brother's neck.
Yeah, Ken, I feel for you, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday. And we talked about it. You mentioned that it was the look in his eyes, right? Like he could do it. He was above the law.
Yeah.
And that he knew what he was doing on camera, and that he could do it. And I'll let you know, like, when I described it to people about what it was that, like it made me feel rage, and it was the same look, right? It's like that look. There was something in his eyes, and like, wow. And part of it too, I was thinking about it more this morning, and the other way I used to describe it was like, it was the look that he was entitled, and that people were saying to get off of him, and like, while I'm watching on my phone, my instinct is to like jump and like pull somebody off, like pull him off of him, pull him off.
Yeah.
There's people all around and nobody, and that's what hurt. That's what tore at my heart. Like, nobody could have pulled. They all wanted to, and they couldn't because of that badge. Because and all the other 3 cops were, they didn't do anything, right? So if I feel that much emotion, and this doesn't happen in my community all the time. This doesn't happen. We don't have the 400 years of this type of violence on our community. We don't have that. We got Hawaiians experience oppression, and we got history and a lot of trauma and issues, but that violent element, I don't think that it's definitely not the same, right? And it's not there. So
Yeah, I mean,
that makes sense.
No, I mean, you're spot on, because see, that's the look. So when black men and black people see that look that we see in that cop's eyes, that's the look that we see every time. When I was a young man, I was a young lawyer. I had been practicing for 1 year, just finally got out of law school, bought me a nice car, and I'm riding home after I picked up my 5-year daughter, and they surrounded my car at gunpoint. And when I rolled down my window and I told them who I was, and I'm in my own neighborhood in a nice car, and they got a gun pointed at me and my daughter when I rolled down that window. See, that's that look that we see as black men and black people on the mainland. And what that look said to me was, nigga, I will kill you, and ain't nothing y'all gonna do about it. So I know you got me on tape. I know you record me. And the longer you tell me to get off his neck, I'm gonna keep my knee on his neck. And see, it's hard to explain it to people that ain't been around that. And so when we see that, it re-traumatizes. It's like, cause we know that look. We know that look. See, that's the same look our slave masters had when they would come in and take our women from us and rape them because they owned us as property. We were taken from Africa, right, involuntarily, and brought to this country as property. And for over 200 years, we were in brutal, brutal, brutal slavery. So we don't have no connection to our homeland. A lot of us don't know what our culture is. They renamed us their names. And so when I hear, you know, and what's been kind of hurtful, when I hear we got a lot of support from a lot of Native Hawaiians, right? I mean, I get a lot of it, you know, inbox me or call me and say, you know, I'm really being supportive. Let me hang up this phone. No, I apologize. But there have been a few that's like, you know, and I'm trying to explain to them, you know, they say, well, you know, anyway, it's just been disappointing, you know, because for me, when I see what happens out there and to see that, it becomes so traumatic. And then to see it over and over again, right? And so when it talks about Black Lives Matter, we ain't talking, what we saying is, for whatever reason, our lives don't seem to matter. You know what I mean? Because you can kill us with impunity and nobody gets punished for it.
Right. So, you know, mahalo for sharing that. And I wanted to talk about the reaction of what everybody witnessed, because the reaction, I mean, that's what we see happening. So when we see all this noise and criticism, and I don't think anyone condones looting and stealing, right? And
Not at all.
And even writing, right? But I want to touch on that a little bit, because there's a reason why that visceral reaction, you know, happens. And you know, I want to touch on Dr. King, who obviously, you know, peaceful protest, nonviolent direct action, you know, has proven to be the most effective way to achieve social change in democracy, right? And Martin Luther King taught that. He professed it. He was a student of Gandhi, who led a nonviolent revolution in India. But you know, Dr. King in 1967, in a speech that all of us have probably seen the memes flying around by now, but the speech was in 1967. The topic, you know, he was actually speaking on opposition to the Vietnam War at that time, and he condemned rioting, right? He
Right.
said he did not condone it, but then he went on to say, I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society, which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. And what is it that America has failed to hear? You know, so given that, you know, how would you interpret that quote and that ideology today, or how would you apply it to what we're seeing happening right now?
Well, because I mean, you know, when you watch what's going on from the TV perspective, and having been in so many protests, and some have ended up in the riots, there's a lot that's going on. So you have your looters who are just committing crimes. They should be arrested and punished. And you got some that will come in and try to take advantage of it. But for the most part, the majority is peaceful protesters. Then you got those officers. Like I said, when I was up on the mountain, the police were very, very respectful of the Kupuna and everybody up there. You could tell they didn't even want to make any arrests, you know. But on the mainland, man, I mean, they will shoot you with them. We've been shot with rubber bullets. Our kids have been shot with it. And so, you know, it erupts. And it's almost like enough is enough. And if you really look at America's history, you go back to the Boston Tea Party, you go back to the Boston Man. The first man killed in the first riot that led to the American Revolution was a black man. Crispus Attucks was a black man. And if you go back and look at how that riot started, it's the right. You got people came in there protesting in Boston, and then all of a sudden the store owners got nervous. They called in the police or the militia. The militia came in, and the people in the streets that was protesting started throwing dirt and mud at the militia. They got scared and killed somebody, and that's how the riots went up. And they killed the first black man. But see, that's viewed as seeking justice. When we look at the riots and the protests going on in Hong Kong, where they tearing stuff up in Hong Kong and Taiwan, that's, you know, in order to fight communist China, they're viewed as freedom fighters. But when you keep taking our lives and stuff like that and expect it to sit around while you shooting our kids and that it erupts. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, yeah, what Dr. King is saying is, you ain't hearing us. that we tired. So, like I said, I don't condone violence or anything like that. The only difference I had with Dr. King when I used to march is that I believe in nonviolence, but I believe in self-defense. I was always a Malcolm X man, and so don't touch me, I won't touch you. But I was not one for turning the other cheek. Now, when I go, and that's another thing too. So when I see, like I said, I'm not Native Hawaiian, you know, and when I seen and started looking at what they was trying to do to the sacred monarch, and what TMT was doing, and just the desecration of that, and the way it was hurting my Native Hawaiian brothers and sisters, and just the few that I knew at that time. You know, I can't say I know what it's like to be Native Hawaiian, and I would never say that. What I did say was, what can I do to help? And I don't, you know, so they said, well, if you come over here, you got to be in Capo Aloha. And, you know, and that's what I do, because, and I don't go over, you know, how can I help you in your movement? Because again, we all being oppressed. And so I guess what's been disappointing is when I hear people saying, well, this is how y'all should be doing it on the mainland. And you know, and I'm just like, hey, you know what? Unless you've been there, I'm telling you, man, that if you look at the hurt that's going on in the Black community and the trauma, because when you go all the way back to Emmett Till, I mean, if you go back to the Massey case here, pretend if that happened over and over again, over and over again, y'all know how traumatic that was. That's one of the first cases I learned when I got here, man. I mean, and just reading it today, or any day I read it, it makes my blood boil. And I had that happen over and over and over again. And then the people that's killing your people ain't going to prison. They ain't get, you know, you ain't getting no justice. And then they do it on videotape when the man's crying for his mama. Nah, man, hey, you know.
Yeah,
So.
and you brought up a couple things that I see as connecting, you know, and again, this is not, be very clear about this, because this is a learning opportunity for all of us, right? And so I'm gonna speak on a perspective of how I think there's connections, right? I'm not gonna say that my opinion is this is how we do it and this is how you should do it, or this is how you do it, this is how we should do it. This is our experiences, and here's the differences, right? And here's the similarities, right? So when you say you're up on the Mauna, you know, when I was up there, those first few days when the cops showed up in riot gear, right? We had the officers flying from Honolulu, the National Guard was there.
Yeah.
And you know, thankfully, we had a big crowd, but it wasn't had it been 5,000 people, things might have been very different. So one, manageable space. Two, somewhat, and I don't want to say it was manageable, it was tense, and it was on the edge all day for like 3 days, up and down. And thankfully to the kupuna, to the leaders, you know, we got leaders on the ground that are trained in, you know, have studied up on nonviolent civil disobedience. We have cultural practitioners up there who are trained on ceremony and protocols. And then we have kupuna voices, and we have that structure, you know, and in that space. And, you know, this is an ongoing issue that there's been education going on for a long time. And even still, I mean, it took Antipua Case probably 6 times an hour on the mic telling us, stay calm, kapu aloha, don't react, let them be the ones to do it. And then even, you know, and they were saying, even if they use force, lay down, don't fight back, right? So the nonviolence was just, you know, being drilled in us by our kupuna. And really that's for that situation. We're defending a sacred space, right? We're not in a violent space. We're not in the inner city. We're not in Honolulu. We're not surrounded by concrete. And that's what Antipua kept reminding us of, is this place calls for a higher self. It calls for a higher level of, you know, yourself. And still in that space, you could see flare-ups. You could see people's emotion getting the best of them with just the presence of that force, right? Of that riot gear, weapons. They got the military truck outside, the soldiers sitting, you know, the National Guard sitting out there, and all this intimidation that was happening, right? And we start singing and to calm it down. And I will say that to me, you know, looking back on it, I didn't realize it at the time. It was more just like, please don't do nothing crazy, right? Because I don't know, like for myself and for the police, like, because I don't know how people are going to react. We don't know if people would react peacefully and let themselves get hit over the head or sprayed with gas. I know I had a plan to run, you know what I mean? But like, but the key there, what I'm getting at, sorry, and I might be rambling, is they could have used force that and made it violent. That's the choice of the people with the power, right? It wasn't our choice to get violent. It was their choice. And thankfully they did it. Even though, and I think there were some that were itchy to do so, but we cannot blame the community. I mean, there's blame to go around, but we cannot put the blame on the community that is having the power exerted on them for things getting violent. We're not the ones showing up with guns. We're not the ones showing up with cannons. We're not the ones showing up in riot gear. We're people. We're in a community. You know what I mean?
I think you make, you know, when each time one reason why I kept going back to the Mana is because each time I went there, it made me feel good. And I will say this, man, and I've said it before, but there's something truly spiritual about being up there. And I would come back and tell people, I was like, look, man, I can't explain it to you. You just have to go. You know what I mean? And once you get there, you know, I can't describe, it's like a language of the heart, right? I can't describe it in words, how good it made me feel. And I would come back here, right, after being there for a day and get depressed and I want to go back. And that's how beautiful it was. But you're absolutely right. And here's a key distinction. See, that's TMT, the governor, and UH. But when we out there protesting, we facing directly the same people that's killing us. Again, I'm not saying all cops is bad, you know, at all, because there's a lot of good ones, right? But it's the police that we see every day, right? That we out there. So what they would do in our protest is they would have, and they started this back in the 60s and probably before them, but I know in the 60s and even up, so they would have plainclothes officers pretend to be in the crowd, and they would throw stuff at the police. It was always pre-planned. And then the police would say the rioters are attacking us. And it was their own, right? And that would start it off. And then you got the media there. And so now once they see that the people is peacefully protesting and becoming the aggressors, then the media is like, well, yeah, now the police should go in there and whack them heads. And that's what you see a lot. And again, but there's some that's instigated that's not done by the police. It's done by young people and stuff like that. But there is that rage, and I'll say this, man, you know, and Dr. King kind of alluded to it, and people say, well, you know, what would Dr. King do if he was here? You know, D.L. Hughley said, you know, we don't know because y'all shot him. But the point is, after Dr. King was killed on April 4th, 1968, the whole United States on the mainland and almost every major city went up in riots. And 6 days after, because of those riots, the Civil Rights Act was passed. And last week, when the governor of Minnesota stood at a press conference and said, we ain't gonna charge these officers right now, we're gonna do a thorough investigation. It's gonna take a few weeks, a few days, right? Then people started lighting up, they got angry. Like I said, I'm not talking about looting, but you got some people that got angry. Most of the protesters were peaceful, but that anger and that other stuff, and just that the next day that man got charged. And
right.
So again, like I said, man, I just think it's different. My point is this: we all had the same goal, and that's justice, and we all had the same oppressor.
Right.
It's the same oppressor, man. It's the same. That's the only I can relate to the government oppressing the Native Hawaiian community. And when I came here in 2008, I don't know what video it was, man, but it was like a 2-hour video about the history of Hawaii. It was running on cable. I don't know. I just happened to watch it.
It was probably Activore.
Man, I was so angry. I was so, but you know what? I was so amazed at how peaceful the queen, how, you know what I mean? It was just like, she thought about her people. She's like, you know, and the nonviolence of all that. But it just made me so angry because, like I said, man, the way that they came in here, and I do, you know, that's another topic, but I do believe that the state was stolen. I know there's anyway. And I just believe that the same, you know, it's just with indigenous people on the mainland, Native Hawaiians here, Black folks, people of color, period, man. We all had the same oppressor.
Yeah, yep. And it boils down to an injustice. What's gonna cause a protest? What caused us to gather on the Mauna, abuse of our Mauna, and just in the widespread response to all of the injustices that we see happening day to day, right? And that just happened to be a pinnacle. And what we see, you know, I don't want to lose in all the noise is the injustice that occurred, the injustice that sparked it, and it's George Floyd's life being taken, and by a police officers, right? But I do want to unpack some of these steps, because there's positive that can come from all of this, right? But there's steps that are happening, and you know, you got to go there. It's a reaction, right? It's a visceral reaction. People are going to react, and now what we see, and so let's go through some of the steps, and I'm going to just kind of recap a little bit, so before we can get into how we think this thing is might or where we're at now and how it'll progress. But you know, the first night that the video came out, people assemble in the street of Minneapolis. They're met with force. Then the next night, the city goes up, starts burning, and then the next day after that, so the third day, Chauvin gets arrested after the city goes up. So first of all, we had a man kill somebody on camera, did not go to jail immediately, right? And all this activity happens. And then now yesterday, you know, a week goes by, the unrest spreads because, you know, one cop is in jail, but 3 still are not. And then we see all this video, they're all there. And like I said, whether it's, I mean, they should be criminally liable just for not pulling him off, let alone putting their knees on his back. Right. And because they're the only ones that could have done anything.
Right.
The people that were there, the citizens, they risking their life if they go over there and put their hands on a police officer. Right. So a week goes by, the 3 accomplices aren't arrested. We see the rioting spread across America and peaceful protests. Actually, let me rephrase that. And this is part of the mistakes, right? We see protests and demonstrations arise in multiple cities across America. Some looting and rioting is taking place as well, right? So like you broke down, there's different parts. There's the criminal looters that jump on. There's people who's really losing their cool, breaking stuff, shouldn't be doing it. And then you got the people that are there to participate in democracy, right? And exercise their First Amendment rights to call out injustice, right? And so all that's happening across America. And then we see that the 3 officers are arrested yesterday, charged, and that the 3rd-degree murder charge is elevated to 2nd degree. So there's a lot of different topics we can discuss there, but what I want to focus on is the peaceful protests. So then we see like President Obama come out and say, keep the peaceful protests up because we got to make change. So, you know, now I feel like the peaceful protests are locking in, they're spreading. Why do you think that that's still necessary, or you know, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, because again, it's not just for justice for George Floyd. It's you know, a time, you know, it's almost, this has been unique in this sense. You know, when you got people over in Europe protesting, when you have people all over the country who watch that video and engaging in protests throughout the world about the death of George Floyd, and you have like so many different races on the mainland participating. This isn't like a Black protest. But I want to say this real quick, Davis, because I want people to understand this. What we get, you know, when they talk about the rioting and all that, if you just listen to the news, you think that it's just a whole bunch of violent people. But remember, when we was up on the Mauna, how the governor and them kept saying they up there smoking weed, they up there doing this, right?
Alcohol.
Alcohol, they up there fight, all this stuff. And those that y'all knew that was a lot. But if you started looking at the news feeds that was running that, and then you started seeing the public opinion talking about, yeah, the governor, you should go up there and just, why don't you bring the National Guard in? That's the same thing that's going on with us when they bring that kind of feed over here. And I think as people of color, we got to understand and see that okie doke coming. And so, you know, again, we have to push back on that narrative because it happened directly to us last summer. And I mean, you know as well as I do, man, they made it seem like everybody up there just having a big party. That's beside the point. But anyway, so normally what happens is this. You get those 3 or 4 days, 5 days, 6 days of some violent issues coming out, and then you get the peaceful protests. Then they're talking about a big march on Washington in August, and all that. You have to keep the pressure on them, and hopefully that'll bring about that change. But let me just say this: the only change that we wanted, like, you know, the kumbaya about what's it like to be black and let's have town hall meetings and all that. Every time this happens, that's what people want to do. What we're asking for is just justice. When somebody kills us, arrest them the same way you do us. Prosecute them with the same fervor and same determination when you see them commit a crime. And it's the same way you do us. And if that happens, you're not going to see people jump up and rise. But if that happens, if bad cops start getting prosecuted and going to prison, they'll stop doing this. Same with the Me Too movement. When the Me Too movement started getting Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and the rest of them locked up in prison, you're going to see a decline in men harassing and sexually raping women because they get in positions of power. And that's what we're asking. I mean, to me, that's what I think is the issue. Not that you don't need to know what it feels like to be me. And we, you know, I'm not, that's good, okay, for us to get to, but
right.
Justice has to come.
So justice and I want to touch on because I see a movement building and you know I see the fact that people are in the street is gives me hope. You know, like if they weren't in the street, I'd be worried after seeing that video. You know, and so I want to talk a little bit about how the movement can progress, and we know we've seen it before, and maybe just how, you know, how do we not let the positive calls for justice and the change that we know and the changes that we know need to happen, how do we not lose that and know where, you know, it can get sideways, and I bring up the movement aspect because that's another connecting a point of connection, I believe, in Hawaii. And, you know, Hawaii is not absent for this specific issue. We're not absent police violence in our history. The labor movement was sparked by the Hilo Massacre and the Hanapepe Massacre in the 20s and 30s, where plantation workers stood up, were demanding fair wages, were demanding workers' rights, and they were met with police force. In Hilo, I don't think anyone died in Hilo, but it was Hawaiian, Native Hawaiian, Japanese, Native Hawaiian, Filipino, Japanese, multiracial. There was this uprising and they used force to shut it down. And it took 30 years for that movement to build. Same thing, you know, in Hanapepe, there was Filipino plantation workers. And there was a shootout with the police, you know, demanding workers' rights, demanding fair wages for Filipino workers. And there was I think there were like 7 or 9 plantation workers killed. I think 3 police officers were killed. And these are things that I think we don't think about when we see all these images and we go through all these emotions. Like, people don't think about there's similar struggles that we've all faced, you know, or that our ancestors faced, right? Could just be our grandparents in that situation in terms of the labor struggle. But, you know, organizing resulted from that. Right, the movement kept building, and that led to the democratic, you know, revolution in 1959 is what happened was this multiracial coalition of advocates and workers and communities toppled the power, at least for the time being, of you know, at least their control of government direct at the time. You know, at the time, the Big Five was it was the governor. They were appointing the governors, the every high-level government agency position. They controlled the government, and the people stood up and assumed those positions. You know, took that power, and that was the outcome of all of this resistance and uprising and the violence and the police interactions. You know, at the time. And again, I'm not condoning it. I want people you know, I'm just sharing what my thought process is on how we start to break down what we're seeing. And, you know, that said, even there was, you know, law enforcement killing unarmed people. I know of a couple instances where unarmed individuals have been killed by the police here. There was one high profile one a few years, you know, a number of years ago, where a young man was killed in a McDonald's in Waikiki by a off-duty federal officer who's still free. Called it self-defense. The local kid didn't have a gun, so I don't know how that's self-defense. You know what I mean? But you know, it's not foreign to us, right, gang? Like I just wanna make sure that we know that this injustice is systemic, right? And I think that movement building, where I'm going with this, sorry, that coalition and how you kind of look at the models of the past of how, you know, on specific issues, movements were built and advocacy was exercised and coalition building was exercised, and then change came. You know, how do you think we can start to, you mentioned a little bit about, you know, holding cops accountable. Is there anything else that you can see in terms of systemic change that can happen to address, you know, this abuse of power in many ways, which it is? Are you on mute? I can't hear you.
Okay, yeah. I guess what I was going to say is, I don't know how I got on mute. What I was going to say is that I think it's broad based. It's economic, it's educational, the same issues that are faced by any people of color here or anywhere on the mainland. But I want to say this too. You know, people are asking what can they do to, you know, to support the cause, and I think this is that's a multiracial cause, as you can tell from the protests going on in the mainland. And I think uniting together, but a big key is keep in mind social media. And if you go back to what was going on the Mana last year, and how the governor would come on and say, well, you know what, we went up to that structure and they were and we, you know, remember when they came and tore up the structure and sawed the flag in half and was trying, right? And so everybody got on social media and started making sure we pushed back on that narrative. Because when they control the media, they being those in power, and they can control what's being showed and set the tone for it. If we don't use social media to push back, and that was, you know, that was very helpful in the movement this past year. We were able to get on there and show that the governor's lying. There was videotape showing he was lying. Here's my point. As we go forward on this, you know, it has to be people of color, white people, just everybody pushing for what's just economically, right? And that's why you had a big following with you know, but economically, with respect to education, with respect to justice, and then educate ourselves, because the same thing that was trying to be done to Native Hawaiians through the, you know, those governor press conference, the attorney general, you know, trying to get records of whoever donated to help people, that, you know, all that stuff is going on with our right. And so we have to become and make each other aware of that, instead of believing the first thing that we see, you know, and use our social media to push back and let people know that we're united in this, that Black lives do matter, and that our situations are, and there's nothing wrong with it being different. And understand that doesn't mean that we don't care about everybody else's life, but what we're saying is, like I said, going back to that Diddy case, you know, my YouTube channel, I did a whole class on why, you know, because that meant Colin Edders was unarmed, but he was a person of color. And you got this white police officer coming in there, who want to start something at McDonald's at 2 o'clock after he'd been out drinking. And Colin wasn't starting that. Colin wasn't even talking to that guy. Somehow that guy instigates a fight, right? And then all of a sudden he kills this man, and somehow he's acting in self-defense. When Colin, to me, it reminded me so much of Trayvon Martin, you know? And so the question becomes, is there justice? Right now, you know, don't get me started. So yeah.
Yeah, I want to touch on something though, and this goes to a question that's in the box as well. And yeah, I have one more question, but I'm gonna go to this first. So you know, there's a difficult, well, there's this issue going around right now, whether people should be saying they're more comfortable saying all lives matter because of their own experiences, or because to them all lives matter and Black lives matter.
See, that minimizes, I hate to cut, but that minimizes what's going on to our culture. See, it's almost like me saying, if you said, you know, Native Hawaiians have been, or, you know, we want ʻŌiwi, we want a certain amount of money, or we want our, right? And then I say, well, all Aloha, you know, whatever, everything should belong to everybody. We're just as important too, and we need our own land, and we should have, you know, ʻŌiwi should be, that's the same thing. That's it, right? And so to say that, well, you shouldn't say on Black Lives Matter, that minimizes what's going on to Black folks. Because like I said before, man, look here. When we have been snatched from our homeland and degraded, right now, 401 years, even after we got lifted out of slavery, we were lynched through the South. We weren't allowed to go to the same hotels or same bathroom. We had to sit on the back of the bus. Then when we had to go to different schools that wasn't funded. We had to be told that somehow you less than. Jackie Robinson had to be called nigger while he playing baseball. Right? And then when Colin Kaepernick and other Black men take a knee, oh, what you ungrateful Black man, you should be happy that we paying you money. Right? And what he's trying to say is, look, don't minimize our struggle. We getting shot down in the streets, and they say, well, another thing is Black on Black crime. Well, see, the Department of Justice statistics show that you got white on white crime because Black on Black crime, Latino on Latina, because we live in certain neighborhoods. And so there's white on white crime because most whites kill most whites. Most Blacks kill most Blacks. Most Latinos kill Latinas. It ain't, you know, that's the way it is. But see, if I kill another Black man, I'm going to jail. I'm going to prison if I get convicted. Justice is being served. You have a police officer kill a Black man or a Black woman, he ain't going to jail. He ain't, and most of the time they ain't getting charged. And so what we're saying is that, you know, when you say all lives matter, what you're trying to tell us is, well, you know, I'm ignoring your problem. I'm minimizing what you're trying to say. And that's to me, it divides.
Yeah, and it's hard, I think, for people to understand how saying, well, all lives matter or aloha for all is divisive. And I want to shed some light as a policy advocate and someone who's worked on, you know, in the you know, government and various roles centered around policy issues regarding Native Hawaiian rights and programs. This is we get all lives mattered all the time. It happens regularly. And I'll give you and what that means is when we say Hawaiian homelands should be funded because Hawaiians should have affordable housing, we get met with, well, why are you special? Well, we got to fund everybody else, right? And then we get not like crumbs that can't do anything. And I'm not putting that onus on everybody else, but I just wanna say, like, it happens to us, and it's done in a way that minimizes and undermines the work, and it's methodic. It comes from a political strategy far away that has been deployed ever since affirmative action efforts started gaining traction, right? And our people of color started getting into colleges. We started hearing, why are you special? Everyone matters. Everything should be equal. And yes, we can be equal, but fulfill these promises. Take care of this, right? And so it would be better, like, we can say we all matter, but support each other in recognizing each other's differences, right? And I don't know if this is accurate, but when I hear the Black on Black crime argument, I think about, yeah, there's internal issues that have to be taken care of in our community. Imagine trying to take care of those internal issues when you got this oppressive, you know, you're dealing with, you have to watch your back from the entity that's supposed to protect you, right? In your own communities. You what that, just that alone causes what could make somebody crazy. right?
But
Just that alone.
And you know, even here, you have certain organizations and nonprofits that go into the Native Hawaiian community and address issues of domestic violence. And we have them in the Black community too, but they don't tell y'all that, right? They make it seem like we don't care about violence or crime or domestic violence, when there's a ton of organizations that are very similar to the ones that we have here that goes in there, because those issues have to be addressed. And so it doesn't mean that we're not concerned about our issues that go on. Going back to your point, what it means is this is not by mistake. This all right. Look, when you see Trayvon Martin might being killed and the person doesn't pay, when you see Eric Garner and the cops get I Can't Breathe in New York, do our lives matter? They must not. If you're not going to get punished for killing us, and it's clear on videotape that you killed me and you weren't justified, and you still get to walk around free, do Black lives matter? And the answer right now is no. And so when we see the videotape of Chauvin, Officer Chauvin, with his knee on Brother Floyd's neck, what we've been saying for years is, you got your knee on our neck. Like Reverend Sharpton said earlier, you got your knee on our neck. And then you want to say, why should you be treated differently? How you going to tell me that you're going to hold our people? It was a crime to teach a slave how to read. You could be hung or killed. And if a slave knew how to read, he or she could be killed. Now all of a sudden, we've been in your custody as your property for over 200 years, going on 300 before we get into Jim Crow. Hey, man, so.
Yeah, I hear you. And I appreciate this conversation, and I want to wrap it up, and we'll get to Hina. And this is going a little bit over, but we got people hanging on. I think it's a good discussion, and I appreciate it very much, Professor. I'm hoping that people can take away from this. We gotta check ourselves in these times. I really firmly believe that, given everything that's going on from COVID to now this, the tough conversations can't be avoided anymore. And that's going to take some self-reflection. And I've been reflecting myself, like, on how I approach things, and, what can I say that's going to make it better or worse, or what can I do? You know what I mean? And I think that all of us have to kind of think about that and start having some tough conversations, because there is potential for very, very, very good things to come out of this, right? And it's mutual respect and, culture, identity, aloha, all these things that's important to Hawaiians that we make us so proud. There's different ways to extend that, right? And recognize that that's being experienced and done in other communities too. But that doesn't mean we all gotta be the same, and that nor do we have to let go of our struggles by saying that we include everybody, that this applies to everybody, which includes, so I want to touch on, when you say all, that also includes the status quo. That's the problem for me too. I say, well, all we were talking about Hawaiian rights. Well, all rights matter. Well, that includes the status quo. Like, if you represented the status quo, that means you don't respect it, because the status quo is not acknowledging what's going on in our community, right? So that said, on a hopeful note, I want to touch on something about, you mentioned multicultural, there's multiracial, these demonstrations is people from across the spectrum showing up. And I think that's really beautiful, and that provides me some hope, but there's roots in the movement of that, right? And what came to mind the other day was the Rainbow Coalition. And I thought that was something that stemmed from the Martin Luther King civil rights movement, which it did. And then, Jesse Jackson would talk about it when, this is just from me reading history books. I obviously wasn't around, I was a little baby at the time, but Jesse Jackson promoted, the Rainbow Coalition. So I'm looking around the other day, and I find some articles, some pieces, and I was surprised that the roots of the Rainbow Coalition was in the Black Panthers, Fred Hampton, South Side of Chicago. And it was all about multiracial coalition building to empower their communities, to not ask for handouts, That's the other misconception that's out there, that all this is about handouts and welfare. No, we want investment in our community that is people and decision makers to respect what's going on. And that Rainbow Coalition, 50 years ago, the hopeful thing is that another connection there, Barack Obama, Punahou grad, cut his teeth as an organizer in South Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, right? Mm-hmm. So this community organizer from Hawaii that became president, that really his organizing was based on these principles, most likely about, coalition building. And it is, because he's saying it right now, right? This Aloha spirit, I think, is probably captured in there somewhere, right? What we have here in Hawaii. And that's something to be proud of, huh?
And that scares them. That scares the people in power. I love what you just said. It's that multicultural movement, right? Where all the people of color came together and said, you know what, we're going to band together just for justice. And if you go back, Fred Hampton, that's why he was killed. Fred Hampton was a Black Panther, but Fred Hampton really started pushing and was getting a lot of a multicultural movement. And you go back and study that, man, because when I was in Cincinnati, his son came from Chicago. I used to do a radio show, and I would have young Fred Hampton on my radio program every time he came to Cincinnati. But you're absolutely right, Davis, absolutely right. It was the strength in our numbers, and that's what I'm saying. We can't let us get divided. We may have different methods, right? But we got to respect one another. And that's why when I come over there, I'm like, just tell me what I can do to be of service, right? And so no matter, when they say, look here, man, remain in Kapo Aloha, that's what the hell I do.
Right. So mahalo for that, and mahalo for the good questions. And there was a question here, I think probably asking about some of the legal analysis around some of these cases, and maybe we can save that for another episode.
If they go to my Facebook page, I've done Facebook Live classes on all these cases, and I continue to do them.
Right on.
So the videos are there.
Well, mahalo nui, Professor. Now we'll, really appreciate it, and encourage everyone to have the discussions and talk about it. And maybe there's some mana'o that was shared today that everyone can share with your ohana and your friends, and don't get into fights on Facebook, but just talk story.
Are you telling yourself that, Davis? Or?
Yes, I have to. That's part of the self-reflection. Don't fight
I gotta take that note too. Again, one of the questions actually that keeps coming up on the side, and Professor Lawson, before you leave, if you can just answer this, because I know this has been a growing question, because we, as Native Hawaiians, we wanna do right. We don't want to intervene or think that we're coming to aid if we might be mistaken about that and actually be doing something that hurts the movement, right? Yeah. So and you had that experience. You had to walk that kind of walk, when you was going up to the Mauna, right? Yeah. In trying to deal with our community and seeing where it was that you could fit in. Well, we have a lot of Native Hawaiians out there who are just like, okay, what can I do? I don't want to offend. I don't want to hurt. Yeah. I don't want to intrude where I'm not supposed to. But what can I do?
When I would go over there, right, just sitting down and talking to like Brother Fred, Brother Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy, Uncle Fred, and Alika Lincoln, and just sitting. I mean, when they saw me, I didn't know. I'm just over there by myself. They embraced me, and we would just sit and talk story, and they would tell me about the history of the Mauna and why it was so sacred, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And I would just sit there for hours and just learn. And the more I learned, the more I cared. You know what I mean? And so I think that, just be open. Try to learn a little bit about the history of what happened to us over in the United States, and not from the way that they want to teach it to you. And y'all can relate to that, because you know how they try to cut off the culture from. The teaching Native Hawaiian language in the school, stuff like that. I mean, so just
right.
you know, so I know not to get in an argument on Facebook, but engage on Facebook and ask questions. You know, I know it could be kind of scary because you're thinking if I ask this wrong, they're gonna think I'm coming from the wrong place. So if you got any questions, you can inbox me if you're afraid to ask, or just call me. We got to get to know each other better because we have a lot more in common than we do apart, and that's as honest as I can be with it.
You know, mahalo for that. You know, so if, yeah, Kanaka, if you're out there and you wanna help out, you know, I guess what Professor Lawson is sharing with us too is that let's approach this and the movements in solidarity with our Black brothers and sisters, that we approach it with an open heart and an open mind, and do some homework. Right? Do some homework. Don't be afraid to, there's so much resources out there. Mahalo, I see Noi Goodyear Ka'opua is on here. Professor Noi Goodyear Ka'opua has been sharing out, you know, a lot of our friends have been sharing out resources, videos, books that we should read so that we can have the right frame of mind, you know, to walk into being of service and being of help. You know, so yeah, mahalo, Professor Lawson, for that advice. Yeah. Okay. Again, everyone, I know usually when we're doing this live, right, we're like, give a round of applause for our, for our guest speaker today. That was an intense conversation, right, that just happened. We had so much people engaging with us. Oh, my height fell down away. But you know, we mahalo you again on behalf of us here at Aloha Rising, you know, for taking this time out. And then also, like he said, any further questions you have, friend Professor Lawson and jump online and watch. He does many free live with an open heart and an open mind. He gets into this and many other topics for all of us. So yeah, mahalo nui for that, and we'll go over to Hina. Or I'm sorry, Professor Lawson, do you have any final words you want to share?
No, I love the Aloha spirit here, and again, I can't wait to get back on the Big Island. That's all.
Awesome.
Right.
Mahalo. Ke Hina le moana?
Oia, ano ai ke aloha ia kakoa pauloa e ka la hui. E nā ohana me na hoaloha o koe ki pa mai nei, mahalo nui o ko ho manawa nui ana mai a hiki I ke ia. Ke ia manawa kakoa e launa nei me ke ia himeni. Eia no ka manawa, kumai e na kanaka. Rise up, stand up, my fellow Hawaiians. The time is now to act. Kumai a nawe like kako. Holomua. You might say, well, who am I? I'm not anybody special. And as I have said in our past presentations, neither am I, my friend. But together, you and I, we will make a difference. As we get into today's brief sharing about this next mele that I bring to you today, I would like for us to shift gears just a little bit and remind ourselves from the perspective in which these mele are composed. And as the composer of the mele that are being brought to you, please, everyone, keep in mind that these mele require us to have our hearts and our minds with Hawaii as our piko, Hawaii as our birth sands, Hawaii as our mainland. And for me, there will be no other mainland other than Hawaii. And as part of the effort to remove the insidious entrenching of our minds and our hearts and our spirits into lands and issues and a culture that's far away, and it comes replete with its own system of ups, downs, and ins and outs. Let us come back to our homeland, to the mainland of Hawaii, mainland of the Kanaka. Here today is E Ola Nā ʻŌiwi aloha ʻāina. Ke olu olu, I'm going to ask if Mehana is available. I'm just going to read through you Makaolelo Hawaii, and she will present to you Makaolelo Pelekania. And once we're done going through it, then I'll go ahead and himeni. Makaukau?
I,
Oh, yeah. Aloha e ku'uo ne hanau.
my love and respect to you, O sands of my birth.
E mauloa I ka mālamalama.
May you remain evermore in the brilliance of the sun,
A pula mamau I ka lei ho'oheno.
and ever cherished shall you remain in our hearts and minds.
Lei hano a o nā kūpuna.
For our ancestors have left your care onto us, their descendants of today.
Next slide, please. The chorus sings, E Ola Nā ʻŌiwi.
Long live the descendants of Hawaii.
E o nā iwi a o ku'uiwi.
Life onto the bones of my ancestors.
O ke koko a o ku'u koko.
Blood of my ancestors and next of kin.
Me ke ewe a o ku'u ewe.
Honored lineage and heritage of my people.
Mahalo. Next slide, please. Pauku elua e ala mai e ku'u la hui e.
Arise and take your rightful place, people of my nation.
Nā koa o ke aloha ʻāina.
Warriors of this beloved land, our mother and our provider to all.
A ku kia I mau e nā mamo aloha.
May we descendants stand watchful guard always and forever.
Ai Kūleana like kako.
For we all share in this responsibility to care for and protect you. Oh,
And yes, and that last line, I'll read that. Our sustenance and provision is in the heart set and the mindset left to us by our ancestors. Mahalo. Next slide. Pauku e kolu naka ike kupuna kako e olai.
and our inheritance is the legacy of these very islands, themselves that which shall eat of and watch over.
I ka ai ka maha o ka ʻāina. A velo ha'aheo ku'uhai o ka lanakila.
Kalamai, may our flag, the symbol of our island nation, wave proudly onto the future.
Mahalo, and my beloved flag representing the dignity, honor, and pride of our people. Avelo ha'aheo ku'uhai o ka lanakila, ku'uhai ua kaulana. My beloved flag.
In fact, known the world around. Kalamai.
Indeed, my beloved flag. Mahalo mehana. My beloved flag, known the world around. Pene nohoi ka himeni ana I ia himeni, ia mele nohoi, mele aloha ʻāina, mele aipoha ku kekahi. And I leave this with all of you. And just a little note that had the class of 2020, Kamehameha School seniors this year, had the opportunity to actually sing in person. You can see them singing this on the Kamehameha website, and they sing it for you. This was their co-ed competition number. And I added one more verse since the time that we originally composed it. So here we go. Aloha e ku'uo ne hanau e mauloa I ka mālamalama. A pula mamau I ka lei ho'oheno lei hano a o nā kupuna. E Ola Nā ʻŌiwi e o nā iwi a o ku'uiwi. O ke koko a o ku'u koko me ke ewe a o ku'u ewe me ke ewe a o ku'u ewe e ala mai e ku'u la hui e na koa o ke aloha ʻāina. A ku kia I mau e nā ma mo aloha e Kūleana like kako. E Ola Nā ʻŌiwi e ona iwi a o kuʻu iwi o ke koko a o kuʻu koko me ke ewe a o kuʻu ewe me ke ewe a o kuʻu ewe nā ka ike ku Puna ka koe o la I ka ai ka maha o ka ʻāina. A velo haʻa he o kuʻu hai o ka lana kila. Kuʻu hai Hawaiiʻi ua ka ulana. E ola nā ʻŌiwi e ona iwi. A o kuʻu iwi o ke koko a o kuʻu koko me ke ewe a o kuʻu ewe me ke ewe a o kuʻu ewe pela no ka himeni ʻana ia mele hou a kahi no a hānau ia mai ke ia mele I Januari Pepeluali ke ia makaiki nei. Pea mai nei ka e mehana?
Ua maikai.
Wa hiki no I ka palena pau o ke ia launa ana ai ole e hana hou.
Hana hou paha, yeah, hana hou.
Hana hou?
Yeah.
Oi. Okay, hana hou. Once again, E Ola Nā ʻŌiwi, aloha ʻāina. Hey, what do you think? It's kind of catchy?
Yeah. No, you said the senior class sung this year. Was it part of their?
It was supposed to be.
Oh.
The history behind this is that I was asked to be the hakumele mentor. And so the students, all of the students for all of the competition numbers this year, they broke up into groups, and so I worked with the haumana to come up with this. They gave me all of their heart and their mana'o, and I helped to synthesize this into this mele. And that's what was supposed to be the senior co-ed competition number, of which you can see at asbe.edu. When it comes to, you just click on the link that takes you to the song contest that they did. Oh, it was absolutely wonderful presentation. Beautiful himeni. Don't miss it. Check it out. Before we review this mele one more time, again, the piko of our people, our homeland, our mainland is Hawaii. And all of these mele that I bring to you are rooted and fundamentally woven into the fabric of who we are as Kanaka. So when we sing this mele, my one request of all of you is that you sing it with all of your heart, all of your spirit, and you give your all, just as we would give our all. And for the discussion topic today, our ohana goes, our aloha goes out to the ohana Floyd, and we Kanaka, we stand in solidarity with the movement that is known as Black Lives Matter. I encourage all of our Kanaka to know the issues and be critically analyzing of all the things that come, because we really need to be very aware of our issues that are upon us. So once again, my fellow Kanaka and other Kama'aina and Malihini alike, here we go. Hana ho kako ia himeni nei. E ola nā ʻŌiwi, aloha ʻāina. Aloha e kuʻuone hanau, e mauloa I ka malama. A pūlama mau I ka lei hoʻoheno, lei hano a o nā kupuna. E ola nā ʻŌiwi e ona iwi A'oku uiwi o ke koko. A'oku ukoko me ke ewe. A'oku uewe me ke ewe. A'oku uewe e ala mai e ku'ula hui e. Na koa o ke aloha ʻāina. Aku kia I mau e nama mo aloha e Kūleana like kako. E ola nā o iwi e ona iwi a o kuʻuiwi o ke koko a o kuʻu koko me ke ewe a o kuʻu ewe me ke ewe a o kuʻu ewe na ka ike kupuna ka ho e ola ai ka ai ka maha o ka ʻāina a velo haʻa he o kuʻuhai o ka lana kila kuʻuhai Hawaiʻi ua kaulana e ola nā o iwi e ona iwi a o kuʻuiwi o ke koko a o kuʻu koko me ke ewe a o kuʻu ewe me ke ewe a o kuʻu ewe no leila na hoa aloha na hoa makamaka na ohana na hoa launa pauloa ki pa mai nei pēlā no ka himeni ana I e himeni e ola nā o iwi o keia noho ana pēlā no ka ōlelo o ke kahi himeni kaulana e naue I mua e nā pōkiʻi a e inu wai awa e vivo ole a hoʻoku paʻa a o he hope e ho I mai ai na I wale no kākou kauko e mau I ke ala au e ke ala ole a ka malihini. Friends and family, ladies and gentlemen, he hala ka hopena o ka hui kanaka, what will be the fate of our Hawaiians? As the words of the song say, forward, young brothers and sisters, drink of the bitter waters, be fearless, be steadfast, for there is no turning back. We shall surmount and triumph all challenges that stand in our path. For too long have we endured and been put down by heartless foreign interests and ideals. Again, what will be the fate of the Hawaiians, my fellow Kanaka, as well as our friends? It's up to you to decide. No leila, ke aloha nui, mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.
Mahalo nui hina, and mahalo for that beautiful mele, as some of our audience members have also rung out in cheer for this mele here. Mahalo nui for sharing that. Everyone, will be right back here next week Thursday. Next week Thursday is Kumemeha Day. You know, I forgot that it was Kumemeha Day next week. So next week Thursday is a celebration of Kumemeha Ikahi. So that should be an interesting one. Davis, thank you again for, you know, setting up this series, but, you know, especially today's talk was very timely, you know, and then from the engagement that we've gotten from everyone out there, you know, people really learned a lot today, right? You have any kind of closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts is, you know, it's been a rough couple months for everybody, right? And and this last week, I think, kind of was another. I don't think that we could have anticipated another type of heavy climactic event, tragic event to fall on us this way, and it's been very emotional, I think. And you know, like I said, Hawaii, you know, we haven't very fortunately, and I think that's something we should be proud of, but recognize that it's not because we're we're just situated a bit differently. Our society is a bit different, in positive ways and in just different ways. But we haven't seen some of the traumatic type of reactions that we've seen in other, in cities across America, like we've seen on TV. But recognize that that's not all that's happening, right? There's a lot of beautiful, great, well-organized, strategic community organizing and planning and mobilization happening on the ground to demand social change and social justice, right? And that's something we are very familiar with, whether it be the labor movement, whether it be the Hawaiian movement, whether it be environmental movements. We are constantly demanding social justice here as a society. And so let's be respectful of our brothers and sisters and know that good can come of this, but it will only come if everybody participates in the lift, right? And our time will come to do our own level of organizing and engagement. That's already happening. And the Mauna is one example for one issue that is representative of many issues, but that level of organizing and commitment and engagement is going to be required on multiple levels. And what I think the positivity that may come from this, and when we touched on like the Rainbow Coalition, which was a multi-racial common struggle vision for social change, we might be on the cusp of seeing that happen nationally. So let's be ready, right? And know that we're kind of prepared. Yeah, the nonviolent direct action that we saw in the Mauna, Kahuku, Hunana Niho, which nonviolent direct action, it's like a boogeyman word. Like, it sounds scary to some people, but Martin Luther King wrote six principles grounded in nonviolent direct action, which is about peaceful protest and raising your voice when something's wrong and calling for justice. And so let's demand justice. Let's have the conversations with each other. I want to clarify. I said earlier, don't fight on Facebook. That doesn't mean don't engage on Facebook. Let's think about how we can engage productively and peacefully. It's a powerful tool. And Professor Lawson touched on that. Yeah, like that was, social media was one of our most powerful tools in terms of getting the truth out. Yeah, I was there when I was literally watching the luas get dropped off when he was, or getting the luas. They were there already. They were getting positioned in different places when the governor was like, oh, there are no more bathrooms. There's rubbish everywhere. Like, there's literally dumpsters and luas there. Like, why are they lying for? So, that's the power of social media. So let's use it to advance truth, advance justice, and be ready to organize and mobilize as these elections come. It's not just about voting. I think that's what we're learning through this series, but voting is a critical tool. And I know that normally we have some slides, but real simple, got to register by July 9th. You'll get your ballot in the mail and start to know who your candidates are. There's the slide. So July 9th is the registration deadline to get your ballot in the mail. So make sure you get onto the website, oha.org/vote. And if you're already registered, don't take it for granted. Go on there and make sure you're go onto the website and make sure your address is updated, because you need to have a current address in order to get your ballot. Or if you use your grandmother's or your auntie's address or something, make sure you're checking the mail. And yep, let's aloha kikahi, love each other, and let's holo mua and know that if we work together, positive change gonna come. Yeah, mahalo nui.
Ola. Again, everybody, join us tomorrow on Ola Kahaloa at 6:30 on KGMB for an exciting show. And also join us back here next week, Kamehameha Day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, same time, same place. In the comment streams, mahalo, just to follow up on what Davis was saying, mahalo noi. Professor Goodyear Ka'opua, she posted in there the link to a documentary about the Rainbow Coalition that was referenced by Davis. Yeah, if you guys still have questions, feel free to drop them in to the Facebook site. Not necessarily the Zoom site because we're gonna jump off of that, but on the Facebook site that'll remain live. And then please, please, please fill out our survey. We have a Aloha Rising Connecting Kūleana survey. Please fill that out for us so we can know how to do this better and bring you the Lahui what it is that you guys need in order to make decisions for us to protect our families and encourage the well-being in our communities and like David said, love on one another. Okay, aloha mai kako a hui ho.
Aloha, ahui ho.